Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are looking at a case that is just one of the most frustrating and I think enduring missing person cases of the last few decades.
Yeah.
The unresolved disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley.
And this is a deep dive with some real urgency behind it. Amy vanished way back in March 1998 from a cruise ship, but, the case was just thrown right back into the spotlight.
Right, by that 2025 Netflix docuseries, Amy Bradley is missing.
Exactly. And we have a ton of source material here. PI reports, investigative notes, new witness accounts, and it really forces you to choose between two, just shocking possibilities.
And that's our mission today. We need to dissect that critical, 45-minute window when she vanished from the Royal Caribbean ship, the Rhapsody of the Seas.
And we're going to weigh the evidence for the two big theories.
Mm.
The tragic but plausible accident versus this chilling, maybe well-orchestrated abduction.
We're also going to get into some incredible new leads, including this whole story about a $50,000 failed rescue attempt that involved local police. So let's unpack this and figure out what you need to know.
Okay, so Amy Bradley, she's 23 years old at the time.
A recent college graduate, right? Degree in sports psychology.
Yep. And this is significant. She was a very strong swimmer, a former lifeguard.
It's so tragic to even think about that. She's specifically trained to handle a maritime emergency, and then she vanishes in a scenario that just completely defies her skills.
The timeline of her last known hours is, it's almost forensic in its detail, which is wild.
So on the night of March 24th, 1998, she and her brother, Brad, they're at the ship's disco.
Yeah, just having a good time. They were hanging out with the house band, Blue Orchid, and specifically with the bass player, a guy known as Alistair Yellow Douglas.
And we know from the ship's door lock logs, which is incredible data to have, that her brother got back to their cabin on the 8th deck at 3:35 a.m.
And Amy followed right behind him at 3:40 a.m. Her brother said they sat out on their private balcony, had a cigarette, talked for a bit, and then he went to sleep.
Okay, so that sets up this critical window.
Right. At 5:50 keys in the morning, Amy's father, Ron, he wakes up for a minute.
And he sees her.
He sees her. She's resting, maybe asleep, on a lounge chair out on the balcony.
But then he wakes up again just 45 minutes later at 6 a.m.
And she's gone.
45 minutes. And all that was missing from the room were her cigarettes and a lighter.
Her shoes were still there. And this is so important, the geographical context. By 6 a.m., the ship was either getting ready to dock or was, already docking in Willemstad, Curaçao.
That immediate access to land just changes everything.
It's central to every theory. The family told security at 6:30. So that 45-minute window, 5.15 to 6 a.m., that's when everything happens.
So with a disappearance this fast, the first theory is always going to be the same, right?
Yeah, authorities start with accidental death or suicide. It's just, statistically the most common thing for someone missing from a ship at sea.
The family pushed back on that pretty hard, though.
Immediately. They said she was wary of heights and they knew what a strong swimmer she was. But you have to give the overboard theory its proper weight. Even if you're an Olympic swimmer.
A fall from the 8th deck.
It's catastrophic. The sources say it's like hitting concrete.
So she could have been incapacitated or even killed by the fall itself before she even hit the water properly.
Exactly. The impact alone could be fatal. And if you add in alcohol, exhaustion, she'd be completely vulnerable.
Plus the ship's wake, the propellers.
The chance of recovery becomes so unlikely. That's why the Dutch Caribbean Coast Guard, they searched 170 square miles for 4 days and found nothing.
They did eventually reject the accidental fall theory, didn't they? Citing the lack of any evidence.
They did. But you can't totally dismiss the physics of it. The family, though, they felt the physics and the timeline pointed somewhere else, especially when they looked at how the cruise line responded.
And this gets us into a huge systemic problem, how a corporation's policy can just immediately prioritize business over a potential crime scene.
That's the key takeaway on that side. The family tells them at 6:30 in the morning.
And Royal Caribbean starts letting passengers off the ship, what, like half an hour later?
Shortly after 7 a.m. And that action, investigators just universally criticize it.
Because you've just destroyed any potential crime scene?
Completely. Thousands of people flooding the docking area, leaving the ship. Any chain of custody is just gone instantly.
The family tried to sue for negligence in '99, but that was dismissed.
Yeah, but what's fascinating is that the failures in this case, and others like it, they literally changed U.S. law.
The CVSSA, right, the Cruise Vessel Security and Safety Act.
Right. It didn't pass until 2010, but it mandates things like rapid reporting and surveillance, a direct response to the kind of, information vacuum that happened in Amy's case.
The second that ship docked and let people off, this case went from a controlled search to a much, much harder international manhunt.
Exponentially harder. And that failure, combined with no body being found, is really what made the abduction theory gain so much traction.
Okay, so let's pivot to that. Foul play. Who are the key people? The central figure here is Alistair Yellow Douglas, the bass player from the band.
Right. His connection to Amy puts him right in that critical window. We have 3 separate third-party witnesses, 2 young girls and an older one, who said they saw Amy with Douglas.
And where was this?
Going up the glass elevator towards the top deck sometime between 5:30 and 6 a.m.
Right in that window.
Dead center. The witnesses said she was handed a brown drink and that Douglas came back down in the elevator alone about 10 minutes later.
Wow. Okay, but here's the detail that, for me, really suggests he knew something. Amy's brother, Brad.
Yes. Brad reported that soon after he told security his sister was missing, Douglas came up to him, unprompted.
And said what?
He said, "Hey man, I'm sorry to hear about your sister."
But there hadn't been any public announcement yet. No one else knew.
No ship-wide announcement at all. It's incredibly suspicious. He, of course, denied everything. The FBI gave him a polygraph, but the results were, frustratingly inconclusive.
So if he was involved, how would they get her off the ship? Right as it's docking in Curacao.
This is where the PI, Jim Carrey, his smuggling hypothesis comes into play. He believes Douglas was involved in drugging her.
And that she was smuggled off in
Large musical equipment containers or boxes. You had to think about the ship's logistics. The band's gear would be heavy. It would be among the first things offloaded.
using service elevators right
Yeah.
near the docking area.
Exactly, before all the passenger luggage. It's a massive, easily concealable way to get something or someone off that ship right at the moment of transition.
And that leads us straight into the sightings, which follow this horrifyingly consistent pattern of, well, human trafficking.
The sightings are so critical. The first really compelling one was just 5 months later, August 1998. A Canadian diver named David Carmichael.
He saw a woman he thought was Amy on a beach in Curacao.
Right. And what makes this so powerful is the detail he gave about her tattoos. He described them perfectly.
The Tasmanian devil on her shoulder, the sun on her lower back, the Chinese symbol, the gecko on her navel.
All of them. And he said she looked scared, and that she tried to communicate by pointing at her tattoos before these 2 men just aggressively motioned her away.
Tattoos are a really hard thing to just invent or misremember with that level of accuracy.
Absolutely. Then, just 6 months after that, January 1999, a Navy petty officer, Bill Hefner.
He claimed a woman who said she was Amy Bradley came up to him in a bar or maybe a brothel in Curacao.
Yeah, she was desperate, pleading for help. Said she was stuck after going ashore for drugs. Hefner passed a polygraph years later about that encounter.
And then fast forward to 2005, the family gets an email with this haunting picture of a sex worker named Jess.
And she strongly resembled Amy. One facial comparison expert actually believed the photos were of her, though the FBI couldn't say for sure if they were altered.
This just relentless stream of sightings. It leads to what I think is the most scandalous part of this whole case.
The failed rescue attempt in 1999.
Yeah. A clerk at the Curacao Police Department contacts the family.
A man named Herman Boileau. He says he's seen Amy, he recognizes her tattoo, and he knows where she's being held.
Just pause there. This is a police clerk in Curacao setting up a $50,000 deal. I mean, does that suggest the corruption was institutionalized, or was this just one guy?
It speaks volumes, right?
Yeah.
About the complexity and the potential corruption in these kinds of cases. The local authorities were either unwilling or unable to help.
And this clerk saw an opportunity.
A clear one. The family, they were desperate. They got a check for $50,000, set up the transfer through Interpol.
But he backed out.
At the last minute, the clerk backed out. The family thinks he was either threatened or scared off by the traffickers he was dealing with.
I can't even imagine going through that. Having a deal brokered by someone in law enforcement just to buy your daughter back.
It's unbelievable.
So after these sightings in the late 90s, what happens when the 2025 Netflix show revives the case?
The docuseries generated hundreds of new tips. The FBI is classifying 3 of them as Very significant.
And the PI, Jim Carrey, he's made some progress too, right?
Serious progress. He actually tracked down that former police clerk, Herman Boileau, in 2024.
Wait, it took 25 years to find a police clerk who was involved in an international extortion attempt.
It just shows you how few resources were probably dedicated to chasing these local leads, because of all the jurisdictional hurdles.
And when Carrey found him, what did he say?
He allegedly repeated his story, that Amy was still alive. He said she was hooked on drugs and living with very dangerous traffickers.
To hear that again decades later from a police insider, it just gives so much weight to the abduction theory.
And there's more. We have a potentially critical new witness from the night she disappeared.
This is the bartender or server.
Yes, a female server who reportedly didn't speak much English. She was overheard that night near the service area telling people, "Señorita kidnapped. Señorita kidnapped."
And do they know who she is?
Her identity is reportedly known now, and investigators are supposedly interviewing her. Amy's mother has publicly questioned whether the FBI has actually found her, but if they do.
That testimony would be huge. It moves it from suspicion to a direct witness of a crime in progress.
And finally, there's the biggest potential forensic lead. It could change everything.
What's that?
New information suggests Amy may have had a child after her disappearance.
Wow.
If investigators can confirm that, it opens up a modern DNA avenue for confirmation, for tracing. It's a path to a definitive outcome that just didn't exist in 1998.
Speaking of tracing, the family's website, the one for Amy, it shows these persistent IP pings.
Yeah, from Barbados. And they're clustered around Christmas and Thanksgiving. It suggests someone is still checking on her, looking for information, maybe out of concern
Or guilt.
Or guilt. The FBI clearly sees this as an active case. They just assigned a new agent, and the rewards are still active.
$25,000 from the FBI and $250,000 from the family for her safe return.
Right.
So Amy's disappearance, it really remains defined by this stark contrast. On one hand, you have the possibility that she fell overboard, a tragic, rare accident.
And the ocean just swallowed it whole.
Versus this chilling abduction scenario, which is sustained by decades of sightings and the, frankly, highly suspicious conduct of both the crew and local authorities.
The enduring lesson here is just how that one decision by the cruise line to prioritize docking over a potential crime scene, it created an obstacle in 1998 that is still plaguing this search today.
We learned that a clerk with the local Curacao police was not only aware of Amy's alleged captivity, but arranged a $50,000 transaction for her return in 1999. What does the confirmed existence of that failed police-connected deal tell us about the institutional complexity and corruption involved in Amy's disappearance, and why should that change how we view the obstacles facing international missing person cases today? Something for you to consider.